I was at the BET Awards this year when Taraji mentioned Project 2025, and no, that was not on the teleprompter because I saw that came straight from her heart. Project 2025 will be the downfall of American civilization. It is scarier than anything Susan Collins could have ever written. Scarier than all the dystopian fiction, movie, and medias put together, because it's actually real and our lives will look like The Handmaid's Tale if it happens. This election season is not about voting for Trump, voting for Biden. It's about voting against Project 2025 because it is that serious. The Civil Rights Act is going to be repealed. And if you don't know that when the Civil Rights was enacted, that marked the end of Jim Crow. So legally, if they bring back or if they repeal the Civil Rights Act, they could legally bring back Jim Crow under a new name. They could reinstate separate but equal under a new name because, the Civil Rights Act is no longer happening. So you don't, the protections against being discriminated against having a job if you're a certain race, sexuality, or anything like that, gender, goodbye. Every single thing related to abortion, like you won't be able to have an abortion, and if you have an abortion, they're legally required to tell the reason why, and you're not going to get that abortion. It doesn't matter what reason. If you were raped, if you just don't want, you just won't have it. Okay. Everything for the LGBT community, the transgender military ban is going to get reinstated. So it's like if you're willing to serve for the country and die for this country, unfortunately, if you're willing, like no matter what you identify as, no matter who you are, you should be able to do that, and they're reinstating that. So what makes this all very damning is the news media outlets are not covering this. I don't see this on CNN. I don't see this on MSNBC. I don't see this on anything. I found out about Project 2025 a couple months ago from TikTok. Like, I shouldn't have found out from something that is going to change the future of this country from TikTok, but I did. Also, the Environmental Protection Agency, the agency that that protects the environment, going away. The Department of Education, going away. Free lunches for children, going away. So whether you're Democrat, Republican, whatever, left, right, it doesn't matter. It's going to impact everyone that is not wealthy, and that's pretty much not wealthy and not well connected. And if you are not a straight white guy in this country of middle class, upper middle class, and higher, you're going to be infected by this in one way, shape, or form or another. So please vote. Can you please vote? I've never been political on my pages.
You may have seen this viral post on social media asking, have you heard of Project 2025? Because they're trying to take away everything. And it's okay if you didn't see it. It's also okay if you haven't read Project 2025 or you really don't even have a clue of what it means, because I'm going to do my very best to break it down for you and tell you specifically how it's going to impact America's Black and brown communities. Start with the Department of Justice, the one headed by Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland. DOJ's Civil Rights Division enforces federal laws that protect you from discrimination based on your race, color, national origin, disability status, sex, religion, familial status, or loss of other constitutional rights. When Black Republican Attorney General Daniel Cameron refused to prosecute the killers of Breonna Taylor, Biden's DOJ intervened. Biden's DOJ was involved in justice for George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Michael Jenkins, Eddie Parker, and countless others. These are just a few of the cases that the Biden Department of Justice has supported. Just take a look at some of these. Without this DOJ, these abuses may have gone uninvestigated and unprosecuted. The next Trump Department of Justice enacts Project 2025 and do what he has promised to do on the campaign trail, change the focus of the DOJ to fighting anti-white racism, Black and brown people in this country may never get justice again. Project 2025 would change the focus of the Department of Justice, but it would eliminate the Department of Education. To be fair, this has been mentioned since the Reagan era. I've heard it said countless times, but I really didn't know what it meant. And this is what it means. It means the elimination of Pell Grants and subsidized loans. It's the end of student loan forgiveness and the end of funding for Title I schools. More than 76% of all K-12 Black students in the United States attend a public school. And of the 100% of Black students attending public schools, more than 70% of them attend a Title I school. A Title I school that receives federal funding that supports students who are coming from low-income families. Project 2025 would take those needed funds and give them directly to states to use as those states see fit. They could give that money to religious schools or private schools as vouchers. 21% of all Medicaid recipients are Black. 30% of all Medicaid recipients are Hispanic or Latino. Project 2025 aims to reduce the amount of Medicaid funding in the Affordable Care Act, or what you call Obamacare, and implement work requirements for these programs, for Medicaid programs, while denying the use of this funding to doctors or medical institutions supporting women's right to choose nationwide. For our Black and brown homes like the one that I grew up in, with an amazing, strong, overworked, and overcommitted single mom, well, Project 2025 literally condemns the entire notion that any man will willingly disregard his responsibilities as a father. It's you, the mother, to blame. The document states that the policies and actions of the Department of Health and Human Services should prioritize married father engagement in its messaging, health, and welfare policies. Also, it says that TANF, or welfare money, should be redirected to promote marriage, healthy family formation, and delaying sex to prevent pregnancy. That's the focus of those efforts. And that child support in the United States should strengthen marriage as a norm, restore broken homes, and encourage unmarried couples to recommit to marriage. And while I have no idea the legal path they could take to strengthen marriage, restore...
What the faith? Let me tell y'all something. If you don't have your passport, you need to get your passport before this election. Let me tell y'all something else. If you're interested in moving outside of the United States, you need to get your passport and move out of the United States before this election. Let me tell y'all a third thing. If you have not familiarized yourself with Project 2025, you need to do that before this election.
This fucking traitor is a threat to the United States of America, and I love watching Mark Milley address that.
We don't take an oath to a tribe. We don't take an oath to a religion. We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. The millions wounded in our nation's wars did not sacrifice their limbs and shed their blood to see this great experiment in democracy perish from this earth.
This traitor who said he wants to pardon the people who took part in January 6th. Domestic terrorist.
And if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
This traitor who said he is the chosen one.
I am the chosen one.
This traitor who said that he can do whatever he wants as president.
I have the right to do whatever I want as president.
We have to stay motivated for 2024. We have to speak out. If you don't make content, make content. Hit that little plus button on the bottom of your screen.
Number 3. Project 2025 envisions a militarized police state where law enforcement is answerable only to the president. Maybe you live in a blue city or state and you think, I don't have to worry about my librarians being imprisoned? Guess again. Page 553 lays out how Trump's Justice Department will take over local law enforcement if they don't like how your own elected officials are running things. And they will prosecute district attorneys that they don't agree with. The plan also strips the FBI director of their independence, making them a lackey of the president. See page 549. And on page 104, the plan reduces the number of military generals, so power is more fully consolidated in the commander-in-chief. A central focus of the new police state would be Trump's goal of undertaking
The largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
Immigration enforcement is to be conducted like a war, with the military deployed within the U.S., and millions of immigrants rounded up and thrown into newly constructed mass holding camps. A powerful new border security and immigration agency would replace the Department of Homeland Security. See page 133. This would also mean that DHS's efforts to combat far-right domestic terrorists would stop altogether. One plan that is not in the public document, but that members of the Project 2025 team reportedly disclosed to the Washington Post, is to invoke the Insurrection Act to have the military suppress public protests against Trump. I'm just scratching the surface. The plan is loaded with actions ranging from changing labor rules to effectively end overtime pay, that's on page 592, to slaughtering wild horses, that's on page 528. You can do your own deep dive on their website.
Donald Trump is telling us what he's going to do in a second term, and we need to listen to it. He says that in the first term, a lot of the worst instincts were stifled by two things: him not knowing how the hell the federal government works, and people saying, yo, you got to run for re-election. Those things are not the case in a second election. He knows how to weaponize the federal government. He's planning to fire civil servants with expertise and nonpartisan people, staff the government with loyalists. He has an enemies list, which, by the way, includes the media. He came after MSNBC. He will truly go after the media in a second term.
That's us.
And we can't take him lightly, because I can tell you right before I resigned, I was in an Oval Office meeting with a dozen other staffers, and somebody had, he thinks, leaked a story about him going to.
Donald Trump gets in for 4 more years. The jig is up for them. The gloves are off. There are no holds barred here. He is going full throttle. He's not worried about winning another election. It's 4 years of scorched earth when Donald Trump retakes the White House. Donald Trump.
If you can explain what Project 2025 is and what you found in your investigation.
So Project 2025 is essentially a group of dozens of right-wing organizations. We're talking about think tanks, publications, and the like. And it was convened by the Heritage Foundation, which is, I think, in the climate world, very well known for promoting climate denial for decades, and for even longer, promoting this sort of anti-regulatory stance. So these groups came together in an attempt, essentially, to advise whoever the next president is, if that person's a Republican. So any Republican who takes office in next year's presidential election. This is the second time that the Heritage Foundation has led the creation of a sort of transition plan aimed at a Republican president. In the early 80s, we saw the Heritage Foundation create one of these plans that actually went on to have a huge influence on the Reagan administration, and was framed as a sort of way of taking on the out-of-control regulatory state. And in this particular iteration...
America, why are you freaking out about Project 2025?
Let's make this a quick one, because I'm a little confused about something. I need help from my family.
I'm telling y'all, you better show up and show out with them ballots. I'm being serious now. I know I look good, but it's a serious time. I need y'all to listen. Show up and show out when it's time to vote, because it's not just about the presidential election, you guys. It's time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up. They are trying to bring the draft back. Who do you think they're going to draft first? I'm not trying to scare us. I'm trying to inform us. We got 3 Supreme Court seats up, you guys. We need those seats, or we have no protection. Okay, I got it out my system.
What about the rescinding of regulation prohibiting the discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristics? Do you believe that we should be repealing any regulations to prevent discrimination on that?
I'm blanking on exactly which regs we're talking about, but yes, I support what is in there on those issues. Yes.
So you would, just to be clear, you would repeal any regulations that prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics.
The position is that Bostock should be read properly, narrowly, and not extended to the biological areas like bathrooms that we've been discussing today.
But that's not what the report says. The report says basically you don't want any regulations that prevent discrimination against gay people and people based on sexual orientation or gender identity. I mean, that's what you call for in the report.
No, the chapter accepts Bostock according to its terms, but resists its extension to areas where it doesn't apply.
I'm just quoting directly. It says rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation,
gender identity and sex characteristics. I mean, do you stand by that statement?
I stand by what it says in the chapter, yes.
So just to be...
The Republican Party's agenda for women in this upcoming 2024 election is pretty clear. They want us married to men and having their children, and that is the only thing they want for us. They don't want us to be single mothers. They don't want us to be in same-sex relationships, and they definitely do not want us to be childless. If you don't believe me, this came directly from their playbook, The Mandate for Leadership, on Project 2025's website. Let's start here. On page 13, promise number 4 says that they want to secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. They say the pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, and children. On page 451, one of their goals for the Department of Health and Human Services is to promote stable and flourishing married families. Families comprised of a married mother, father, and their children are the foundation of a well-ordered nation and healthy society. Unfortunately, family policies and programs under President Biden's Health and Human Services are fraught with agenda items focusing on, quote, LGBTQ.
I want to say something about this Project 2025. Who this really going to affect is women. I'm going to tell you how they set y'all up. For they can do what they going to do. They created Section 8. They said your man can't live with you if we going to take care of you. If they're going to give you Section 8 and they said the father can't live with you, you already know what that's doing, right? They setting y'all up for what's to come. That's why they're going to be able to pass this law, and it's going to affect women the most because y'all accept Section 8, housing, EBT, whatever the government give you. So y'all made it easy for the government to create this law that's going to affect single mothers. They set y'all up. The government was taking care of you, but your baby father can't live with you. What you think that's doing? Setting y'all up. Now they saying for Project 2025, if you single, living in a household by yourself, they taking your kids from you. The government been taking care of your kids since they've been born. Now it's time to pay up. What are they going to do with your kids when they take them from you? Who knows? But y'all help them to create this law that is going to affect you the most. It's going to affect you the most. Y'all help them to create this law that they bringing out that's going to affect you. When they told you, if we give you housing, your baby father can't live with you. The house is only for you and your kids. That's it. Now they telling you, if you're a single mother living in a household with your kids, they're going to take the kids away from you if you're not married to the person that got you pregnant. They're going to take the kids from you. You can't even be in a house with a man. If he not your baby father, they taking your kids. They don't care if you get married to a man and he not the baby father. They taking your kids. It's funny how they were so for you. Now everything is going to be against you. Ladies, y'all helped the government to make this law when y'all kept accepting government assistance. Ladies, y'all helped them to create this law. Y'all helped them. But they tricked y'all. Y'all ain't know they was gonna come out with a law like this. They put y'all in a trick bag. Now, they coming for your ass. And they put you in a trick bag. That's sad. It is. But what y'all think about this, people? Did they put our women in a trick bag by giving them government assistance and told them that the baby father cannot live with them and the kids? Ladies, don't get offended. What I'm about to say, don't get offended. This is real. Project 2025 is real. Think about how y'all go out here and get pregnant, right? By a man. Sometimes you don't even know who the father is. But the government still supports you and still help you to take care of the baby. Think about what's in Project 2025. They're gonna take the child from you if you not living with the biological father of the child. Think about how they supported you when you got pregnant and you didn't know who the baby father was. Now they are against you. And if they take your kids from you, what are they going to do with your kids when they take the kids from you? And they supported you to have the kid. So when they take the kid from you, what are they going to do with your kids? That's big.
Government and replace far more. What is Project 2025? Project 2025 is a 922-page proposal to dismantle the U.S. government and replace it with a new conservative vision. The plan was drafted by the Heritage Foundation, an influential think tank led by former Trump administration officials, which aims to promote conservative public policies. Some of the key proposals include a massive expansion of presidential power, firing more than 50,000 federal employees who don't align with the president's agenda, massive scalebacks on LGBTQ+ and reproductive rights, tighter immigration laws, and more oil and gas pumping. Democrats are mobilizing against Project 2025. In his statement, Biden said Project 2025 should scare every single American. Trump has recently distanced himself from the project, writing on Truth Social that he knows nothing about it and he disagrees with some of the things they're saying. Critics point out that several people linked to the project worked in Trump's administration or as allies in his re-election campaign. Project 2025 director Paul Dance, for example, was chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management under Trump. What is Project 2025?
Far more sinister is what's buried deep within Project 2025, which any person who sends their child to public school should care about. They want to mandate that all students in schools receiving federal funding must complete the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. In plain English, that's a military entrance exam. If you flip to page 134 of the 900-page Project 2025 manifesto, you'll read this proposal, and I quote, "To improve military recruiters' access to secondary schools and require the completion of the Armed Services and Vocational Aptitude Battery, the military entrance examination, by all students in schools that receive federal funding." And guess who would be exempt from that requirement, since they don't get federal funds? Private school kids. You feel me now?
What you got to say about Project 2025? Have you heard of Agenda 47? Say what? Agenda 47. Nah. It's the actual platform that Trump is going to push when he becomes president. It's listed on his official campaign website. Project 2025 is not to be found there. Matter of fact, Project 2025 was created by a conservative think tank named the Heritage Foundation. It's supposed to make it illegal to be homeless. Has nothing to do with Trump. Trump has neither endorsed nor supported this platform. He has his own. But I saw on BET. I don't care what any Hollywood elite or BET Awards show hosted by Taraji P. Henson have told you about Project 2025. It is not a talking point of President Trump's campaign, nor is it something that he's interested in. It's just another tool to fearmonger you and to just continue to vote for the same people over and over again and never breaking the cycle of chaos.
The FBI does not want you to play this game. Atlas.
What the faith is Project 2025, and why should Black Americans know about it? Project 2025 is a wish list for right-wing conservatives. It's a nearly 1,000-page document that provides a thorough outline of how the next Republican administration could drastically change the federal government, as well as everyday life for many Americans. It also aims to recruit and train thousands of people loyal to the conservative movement to fill federal government positions. Former President Trump denies any ties to Project 2025, but a CNN review found at least 140 people who worked for him that helped produce it. It is spearheaded and published by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C. What about the why Black Americans should know about Project 2025? It would roll back civil rights protections in employment and housing. It would get rid of federal agencies that help ensure equity, completely eliminating the Department of Education, greatly shrinking the CDC and dividing it into 2 new agencies, and eliminating the EPA's Office of Environmental Justice and Civil Rights, even though the harms of pollution and climate change historically impact communities of color. It would make it harder for underrepresented communities to access Head Start, Medicaid, and other federal programs. Head Start is a federally funded preschool program for low-income children, 30% of which are Black. It would be eliminated. It would limit access to food assistance, eliminating the service that provides the food and nutrition program. These are just a small snippet of why Black Americans should know about and care about Project 2025. Read this article at blackenterprise.com.
The Lincoln Project just released a video that I'm about to show you that theorizes what would happen if Donald Trump is reelected based on statements he's made, the things he claims he wants to do, as well as like Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation saying they know what he wants to do and they have the plans to make it actionable.
Please share this to people who still think Project 2025 is going to happen. Trump just posted this on Truth Social this morning, July 5th, saying that he knows nothing about Project 2025. He said he might agree with some things, but ultimately he has nothing to do with Project 2025. I have already seen people say that they don't believe him when he says this. It does not.
Have you ever heard of Project 2025?
I've read about that, Congresswoman.
Okay. There are some things indicated in Project 2025 that are quite concerning to me. One of those topics is diversity in the workplace. I'm sitting here and there seemed to be this question of you're either diverse or you're qualified. All I could think about was the fact that I currently hold an honorary doctorate. I also hold a Juris Doctorate. I also hold a bachelor's. I also technically hold the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the Civil Air Patrol, and I actually practiced law for almost 2 decades, in addition to serving on various boards, in addition to being a prior state lawmaker. And there are those that would make some people believe that because I happen to be Black and or a woman, that somehow, even though I can rattle off all the qualifications in the world, my Blackness makes me unqualified.
What does Project 2025 mean for our public schools? For one, it means an eradication of Title I status over the course of the next 10 years. This means that low-income schools that receive funds from the federal government would no longer get it. For example, I taught at a school where over 80% of the kids, Black, Hispanic, and white, were low income. But even still, every child had a laptop. That's because it was a Title I school. So without this Title I status, you would have fewer resources for kids, you would have larger class sizes, you would have fewer paraprofessionals and teaching assistants. It would be more difficult to fund after-school programs. There would be less money for college prep programs, summer food programs, less money for free lunch and reduced lunch for kids who can't otherwise afford to have a meal at home. It also means no more federal loans for kids who want to attend college. And of course, within that, every public school student, regardless of their income status, would have to take a military entrance exam. And let's be clear, y'all, Project 2025 is not something that would be magically implemented on the day Trump takes office if he's elected. It's something they've already been in the process of implementing already. Look at the Black History bans. Look at the Black History censorship. Look at the overall censorship of anything that advocates for equity or anti-racism. Look at the DEI programs being eradicated across the country. Anything that helps our kids who have dealt with historical injustices is being thrown out. So y'all, it's imperative that we vote, but it's also imperative that we begin to or continue to organize locally with like-minded people. They have this project because they're organized. What's our project? We got to start going to school board meetings, city council meetings, county meetings.
So I was saying in my last TikTok that I know somebody from the Heritage Foundation. People are asking me.
I want to get into something that has become a critical point for the Biden administration and the Biden campaign against you. This is a headline that the campaign put out. Trump's Project 2025 is a deliberate attack on Black lives and Black livelihood, and it talks about the cost of things and what it says 2025's project would be. I first of all just want to get from you your thoughts on Project 2025 and whether or not Biden can use this effectively against you.
I don't think he'll be able to. Look, first of all, I have no idea what it is. It's a group of extremely conservative people got together and wrote up a wish list of things, many of which I disagree with entirely. They're too severe, like on abortion, as an example. They have a strong view of abortion. Well, from what I've heard, it's not too far, way too far. They've gone really too far. I wanted to get abortion. I did a great job. But getting rid of Roe v. Wade, I was able to get it back into the states. And now I've given it back to the people. The people are voting. And frankly, the people are voting in many cases quite liberally. You look at Ohio, look at what happened in Ohio, look at what happened in Kansas. They can vote the way they want. It's not a federal issue. It'll never be a federal issue again.
I want to get...
Project 2025 is not going to be started in 2025. It is not the year of the project's initiation. It is the year in which the Heritage Foundation looks to as the project's culmination. For the latter part of 40 years.
Are single mothers the new government target?
Project 2025 doesn't just demonize single mothers, it wants to change policies to punish single moms and perhaps even remove children from single parent households. Don't take my word for it, let me show you. Their top priority is promise number 1, restoring the family as the centerpiece of American life. And they specifically call out unmarried mothers as a reason that the American family is in crisis. 400 pages later, when you get to their section on the Department of Health and Human Services, you see that they want to rewrite what the definition of a family is to be comprised of a married mother and father and their children, saying that currently Health and Human Services is too focused on LGBTQ plus equity and subsidizing single motherhood, and saying that these policies should be repealed and replaced by policies that support the formation of stable married nuclear families. It's not enough to be heterosexual, by the way, because they also call out homes with non-related boyfriends as being one of the most dangerous places for a child. And they don't much like surrogacy either. In the context of emerging reproductive technologies, Health and Human Services should never place the desire of adults over the right of a child to be raised by the biological fathers and mothers who conceived them. Here's a horrifying paragraph. The Secretary of Health and Human Services anti-discrimination policy statements should never conflate sex with gender identity or sexual orientation. Rather, the Secretary should proudly state that men and women are biological realities that are crucial to the advancement of life sciences and medical care, and that married men and women are the ideal natural family structure because all children have a right to be raised by the men and women who conceived them. They also want to promote reunification as a part of child support, which is terrifying for domestic violence survivors. And they want to institute a healthy marriage and relationship education program in every state-level high school in America, with curriculum on healthy marriages.
Project 2025 affects you, not the man that you're considering putting in office. And the issue is, when we talk about Project 2025, everyone always says, like, look it up. And the reason why is because it's like, what, a 900-page document. Correct. But when we're talking about it, we're talking about the elimination of women's rights, the elimination of civil rights, the Department of Education dismantled. People who are not
gay
well
marriage
informed,
gone.
right, well informed on this. A lot of people feel like it doesn't affect me. It affects you if you cannot afford to get residence in another country. It affects you if you cannot afford to independently pay for your medical care. It affects you if you have children who need an education. If you are not independently wealthy in this country, Project 2025 affects you, not the man that you're considering putting in office. That's 4 years we're talking about. 4 4 years. If you're planning on escaping this planet in 4 years, then vote and have someone who supports Project 2025.
The Air Force is on record as saying, quote, they want to control the weather by 2025, and we are not talking about just seeding the clouds for rain. Of April this year, there are more than 150 different weather modification programs around the world. Since about 2000, the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy have been spraying the entire United States sky with the toxic brew of chemicals and other biologic agents. Military and some commercial jets have been fitted with huge barrels of at least 49 different kinds of documented chemical poisons. Among other documented ingredients in this toxic man-made clouds are pathogenic molds, fungi, weaponized viruses, and made in some places like the secret site at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is supposed to be a cancer site. But there are a number of scholars and professors tracking this that have big questions about this. Barium and nanoalumin particles. What do these do to the human body? Barium is an alkaline earth mineral. It was discovered in 1774. At low doses, it can act as a muscle stimulant. At high doses, it detrimentally affects the heart and the nervous system. Barium is toxic to all mammals, and that means not just humans. Aluminum, which is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, is known to diminish kidney function and destroy brain cells and cognitive function. Just think about it. Just between the aluminum and the mercury that we're breathing all the time, we've got already a serious issue about brain function and cognitive function.
Have you heard? It's the scariest thing happening right now. It's the new boogeyman. Project 2025. Trump's Project 2025. They're looking to take away your civil rights. They're looking to take away the constitutional rights. They want to get rid of the Constitution. Project 2025, so scary. Now let's talk about what it really is. Has nothing to do with President Trump. He does not endorse it. He doesn't follow it. He didn't know much about it. In fact, he has stepped away from it, saying some of the stuff looks really dumb. Project 2025 is the creation of the Heritage Foundation. I like the Heritage Foundation. I have them on all the time. Doesn't mean I agree with everything that they say. Every 4 years since the 1970s, they've been doing something which is sort of a wish list from their perspective. And the wish list is some very conservative stuff, some stuff that can get done, and a lot of stuff that can't get done. Again, has nothing to do with Trump, his re-election campaign, has nothing to do with how he governed as the president. In fact, for 4 years, we had lower regulations, lower taxation, and more.
This is what happened.
You support Project 2025.
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so, well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who is in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and so they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level.
I'm just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
banning same-sex marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew, that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to Alvin Bragg. He was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And so I guess we will keep waiting, and we'll do hearings like this. And finally, Chairman, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's a restriction on speech, as you have recognized before, but you can yell theater in a crowded fire, and you are.
That is the work of white people. It is the work of Bernie Sanders.
And she is not wrong. She's not the least bit wrong. I have been working on dissecting Project 2025, and as you can tell, I've been doing some diligence. But if you don't accept what she has to say, and I really encourage you to go check out that video, I want to read something to you that will make it as crystal clear. Now, this is simply in chapter 1, in section 1, on page 5, that I'm about to read to you, and it goes like this. The noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be excised from curricula in every public school in the country. These theories poison our children, who are being taught, on the one hand, to affirm that the color of their skin fundamentally determines their identity and even their moral status, while on the other, they are taught to deny the very creatureliness that inheres in being human and consists in accepting the givenness of our nature as men or women. Exactly which of our children do you think the Heritage Foundation and the hundreds of people who contributed to Project 2025 are referring to when it comes to being vilified or having their moral character impugned because of learning about accurate history? Which children do you think they actually care about being affected by this? Let me give you 2 guesses. One of them will be wrong. And I need you to understand this, that as I dissect this and I map out, and I mean I have mapped out a series of aspects I am going to examine about Project 2025.
I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm saying for a fact, so you support the idea that Donald Trump could come in, hypothetically, if he wins the election, fire 50,000 civil employees and replace them with people who support his ideology.
I support the Schedule F idea, yes.
And that means that if he wants to take civil servants from the Justice Department, State Department, from the Department of Homeland Security, and he says they aren't sufficiently for MAGA. I want to fire these folks, 50,000 of them, and replace them with people more aligned with MAGA, he would have the ability to do that. Currently, there are only 4,000 political appointees. You want him to have the authority, if he wins the election, to have 50,000 people replaced, correct?
It's a lesser civil service regime. It's not the same as political appointees, but political policy responsiveness is appropriate when it comes to any employee who touches on public policy, which the left class would.
I'm directionally correct. I mean, I think the American people should decide whether they want that or not. You're basically saying he should have the ability to fire up to 50,000 people if they're not doing what his ideology is, and replace them with people more consistent with his ideology, and reclassify these folks as Schedule F, correct?
100%.
I'm not trying to argue with that.
We already do y'all homework on, like, what the fuck? That shit don't even make sense. Like,
Project 2025 complains about how the Biden administration complains about how the Biden administration has been fighting for racial equity. On the next page, it calls for eliminating data collection on race and ethnicity in employment. On the page after that, it calls for rescinding an executive order signed in 1965 that prohibits discrimination in hiring by contractors. Mr. Berry, do these terrible ideas sound familiar?
They're great ideas.
These terrible ideas sound familiar? Of course they do. You came up with them. Mr. Berry, I find it shameful to advance a vision attacking the very policies and agencies that have helped Black Americans secure jobs, earn a living, and provide for our families. Project 2025.
Democrats are trying to fearmonger Americans with
Brokey, why aren't y'all having kids? The U.S. birth rate is declining. You answered your own question when you called us Brokey. Kids are expensive and we can't afford to take care of them. Hell, half of us can barely afford to take care of ourselves. Oh my God, I am so sick of this "there's nothing affordable" excuse. We can't control what these corporations are charging you for their goods and services. It's called supply and demand. Don't give me that economic bullshit. Why are they allowed to sell anything in this country if you, the U.S. government, can't control them? Oh yeah,